The human walked alone under a violet sky that looked like bruised glass. Cold wind brushed the black trees and made the long leaves whisper. He kept moving, careful with each step. His boots sank a little in the soft ground. Strange lights blinked. Between the trunks, like tiny eyes, he had come looking for a signal from a lost beacon. He had not come looking for trouble. But trouble was already watching him. He heard it before he saw it, soft crying, a broken sound, like glass cracking. In water. He stopped and listened. The forest fell quiet around him. Crying came again, a few paces ahead, near a narrow stream that glowed with a pale blue light. The human moved closer, slow and calm, and crouched behind a root as thick as a wall. There, she was an alien girl knelt beside the glowing water. Her skin held a soft silver tone, as if moonlight lived inside it. Frosty markings lay across her cheeks like fallen feathers. Her hair, dark and heavy, hung wet over her shoulders. She pressed her hands to her face and sobbed in a way that hurt. To hear, at her throat hung a thin metal chain with a flat shard of crystal. The shard pulsed with a weak light, as if it were trying and failing to keep her safe. The human did not want to frighten her. He cleared his throat, gentle. "You hurt?" he asked. His voice was low and steady. "I can help?" Her eyes shone like heated steel. For a heartbeat, she looked ready to run. Then the look changed to fear, deep and sharp. She stood, stumbled back, and almost fell into the water. "No," she whispered. No, you cannot be here." "I heard crying," he said. "I didn't mean to. You have seen too much," she said. The words came out like a knife dragged over stone. She pressed a hand to the crystal shard at her throat. It flickered. "Human, listen to me. If my brothers find you, they will kill you." He did not move. "Why?" Her breath shook. She looked, left and right, as if the trees themselves could betray her. "Because you saw me alone, because you heard me cry, because you stood where I am forbidden to stand." She pointed to the glowing stream. "This is not a place for strangers, not at night, not when the veil is thin." The human studied the water. Strange fish, like shards of glass, slipped through the bright current. On the far bank, carved stones rose like old teeth. There were symbols on them, spirals and lines, in a shape that looked like a closed eye. He felt the air change, colder, sharper, as if an unseen door had opened. A whisper ran through the branches overhead. It sounded close to a name. "What veil?" he asked. She shook her head. "No questions," she said. "It's only a choice." Her throat worked as she swallowed. "Marry me." The human blinked. He thought he had heard wrong. "What? Marry me?" she said again, her voice breaking. "Now here, under the old law, where my brothers will kill you when they arrive. They will not ask your name. They will not care why you came. They only care what you saw." He stared at her. "We just met." "I know." She took one step closer and lowered her voice. "But the old law is stronger than anger. If you are my bonded, they cannot touch you while the mark is fresh. And if you are not," she looked past him into the dark trees. The fear in her eyes grew heavy. "And you will die before the second moon rises." He heard something then, not the wind, not the stream. Footsteps, slow, careful, very far apart, as if the ground feared to carry them. He looked toward the sound. He saw no one, but the hair on his arms lifted. The forest smelled different now, like iron and cold ash. "How many brothers?" he asked. "3," she said. "But the oldest counts as 2. She tried to smile at her own small joke and failed. "They are good to me, but they are cruel." To the world, he weighed his choices, did not trust sudden bonds. He did not like rules he could not read. But he also did not enjoy dying in cold places with no sky left to see. He looked back at the girl. She was shaking, but she faced him without hiding her eyes. There was something brave there, under the fear, like a small flame that had lived. "A long time in the wind." "What is your name?" he asked. She hesitated. "Names have weight," she said softly. "But you may call me Lysa. It is the light name my mother used in the fields." She touched the crystal at her throat again. "Please, Lysa," he said. to make it real. If I agree, what happens? We speak the vow, she said. We share skin to skin, palm to palm, for a count of 9. The water will watch. The stones will listen. The shard will burn and mark us both. That is enough to hold them back. He looked at his own hands. He had scars along the knuckles, healed and strong. And if I refuse? She closed her eyes for one heartbeat. Then I will hide your body as best I can, she said. The footsteps grew louder. Another sound joined them, a soft ringing like metal strings plucked with a painted nail. It came from the left. From the right came a low click, 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 like a beetle thinking hard. Lysa's breathing quickened. She took his wrist with a hand that felt cold and strong at the same time. We must move, she said. They hunt by sound first, then by heat, then by fear. If your fear rises, they will find you faster. Fine, he said, though his heart beat hard enough to shake his ribs. Where? Downstream, she said. There is a bend where the water hides its light. We can make the vow there if you choose. Or we can try to cross into the thornfield and pray they miss our trail. She looked up at him, but they rarely miss. They ran. The glowing stream curved like a fallen moon, and the trees leaned close to listen. Lysa moved with sudden speed, light on her feet, quiet as the small animals that fled at their passing. The human kept close behind, using the roots as stepping stones, keeping to the dark edges of the water. The cold air burned his lungs. They reached the bend. Here the stream slid under an arch of rock. The light in the water dimmed, as if afraid. Of the stone, Lysa stopped and turned to him. Her hair clung to her face. Her hands shook. Choose, she said. We have 3 breaths. He listened. The footsteps were near now, near enough that he could feel them in the ground. The ringing sound came again, brighter. The clicking was to his right, almost level with them. He pictured 3 bodies widening their circle. He pictured himself at the center. What did I see that was so dangerous? He asked. Buying one. More breath of time. She bit her lip. You saw me without a mask, she said. You saw me cry. We are not allowed to be weak in the open, not when the veil is thin. It means the night watch failed. It means I broke the rule. They do not. Punish what you saw. Others will break it, and our house will fall. Your house. He asked. The house of the closed eye, she said, nodding toward the symbols on the stones. We keep the old ways for our people. We pay the price when the old ways are not kept. Her voice softened. I do not want you to pay it for her. Me, he looked into her eyes. He saw fear. He also saw shame and anger, and another thing he knew. Wealth, a stubborn will to live. The ground shivered under his boots. Lysa flinched and grabbed his hand, pressing his palm to hers. Her skin was cool and a little rough, like stone that had learned to breathe. Say yes, she whispered. Just say yes. We can argue about the rest later. We can undo it if you hate me, but if you die, I cannot carry another weight. The human took one long breath. He did not know the law. He did not know the house. He did not know the brothers, except by the shadow they threw across the trees. But he knew this. Some choices are traps, some are doors. Could not yet tell which this was. He only knew that waiting would get him killed. Before he could speak, a branch snapped behind them, loud, close, final. The ringing sound cut off. The clicking stopped. Silence fell like a heavy cloth. Lysa's eyes widened. A voice came from the dark, smooth as cold water. Little sister, it said. Why do you run? She closed her fingers tighter around the human's hand. Her lips moved. No sound came out. Then she forced the words past the fear. Because I am not alone, she said. The trees parted. 2 figures stepped into the half-light by the stream. They were taller than the human by a head, wrapped in dark cloth that drank the glow. Their faces were masked with bone-white plates shaped like closed eyes. Long knives hung at their sides, curved and patient. The older one tilted his head, listening. We count 2 heartbeats, he said. Strange. The forest said you were alone. Lifted her chin. The forest lies, she said, though her voice trembled. The younger one's mask turned toward the human's shadow. "Come out," he said, almost playful. "We won't hurt you long." The human felt Lisa's pulse beating hard against his palm. She leaned close, breath warm at his ear. "Choose," she whispered. Now he stepped forward into the half-light, into the space where the stream's glow kissed the air. The two masked faces turned toward him together. Blades shifted, a soft sigh of steel on leather. The human raised his free hand, slow and empty, and looked at Lisa. In her eyes, he saw a last, small hope. "I choose," he said, and the forest held its breath. The forest still held its breath. Two masked figures stood on the bank, blades half-drawn, their silent stares fixed on the human. The air pressed heavy, as if even the trees were waiting for his answer. The human could feel Lisa's grip tightening. Around his hand, her pulse racing like a trapped bird. He understood something at once. Hesitation was no longer safe. "I choose," he said again, louder, steady enough to carry through the night. Lisa's chest rose sharply, her crystal shard lit with a faint blue glow. She turned to face him, her silver skin trembling as if caught between fear and relief. "Then speak the vow," she whispered, urgent but soft. The brothers tilted their heads at the same moment, like predators sniffing prey. Their voices carried in a strange harmony. "What vow?" one asked. "What trick?" asked the other. Lisa ignored them. She pulled the human closer to the stream's dim water, forcing his palm against hers. Her voice changed, low and rhythmic, carrying an echo that did not belong to the forest. "By water that remembers, by stone that keeps, by breath that binds." The human felt warmth spread from her skin into his hand. It wasn't natural heat. It was deeper, like a mark being written inside his blood. His scars tingled, almost burning. The brothers hissed. One drew his curved blade fully free. But before he stepped forward, a ring of faint light flared around Lisa and the human, circling them like a boundary written in air. The older brother stopped short, his mask tilting. "The bond," he muttered, voice dark with disbelief. "She dares to bind a stranger." The younger one's blade lowered. His tone carried venom. "She spits on her bloodline." Lisa's words ended with a shiver. The shard at her throat burned bright for a heartbeat, then dimmed, leaving only a faint glow. Her eyes locked with the human's. "It is done," she breathed. "You are mine now, and I am yours." The human blinked, still feeling the warmth crawling up his arm. "What did you just do to me?" "I saved you," she said quickly. Her voice cracked but steadied again. For now, the older brother stepped closer to the edge of the circle. His mask reflected the dim glow. "Sister, you shame the house. The law binds us from touching him tonight, but tomorrow the council will decide." "Do you think they will honor a desperate bond made in shadows?" "They must," Lisa said, lifting her chin though her body still shook. "The old law is older than the council. Older than you." The younger brother laughed, short and sharp. "Perhaps. But old law has old costs. The human has no idea what price he has agreed to pay." The human straightened at that, not liking the sound of it. "What cost?" he asked, his voice firm. Neither brother answered. They turned together and melted back into the trees, silent as smoke. Only the cold ring of their laughter lingered behind. When they were gone, the forest exhaled again, branches swaying like tired lungs. Lisa dropped to her knees at the stream's edge, hands trembling. "You should run," she whispered.
Act.
"The bond will follow. It cannot be undone tonight. You belong to me now, human. That makes you their enemy as much as mine." The human crouched beside her. "I don't belong to anyone," he said calmly. "Explain." She looked up, eyes glistening with tears she refused to let fall. "You think marriage is a choice among your people? Here it is, a shield, a chain, both at once." She touched the faintly glowing shard. "The vow makes you family to me, but only in name. It protects you from their blades, but not from their judgment. You will be called before the council. You will be tested. If you fail, they will kill you in public, and I will be forced to watch." The human's jaw tightened. "That's not a marriage. That's a sentence." It is both, she admitted. Her shoulders shook as if she carried a mountain. I'm sorry. He studied her, this trembling alien girl who had dragged him into a storm of rules and knives. She had tricked him, yes. But he had also seen the fear in her eyes, the same fear he had felt when the footsteps closed in. She had acted because there was no other way. Why were you crying? He asked quietly. Before I came, her lips parted, then closed again. She turned away, staring into the glowing stream. Because I am weak, she said finally. And in my house, weakness is a crime. I thought no one would see me. You did, and now everything is broken. The human touched the ground, cold and damp under his hand. Sometimes weakness is the only honest thing we have, he said. Doesn't mean you should die for it. Lysa's throat tightened. For a moment her mask of strength cracked, and she leaned against him, her forehead resting on his shoulder. They will kill you for standing beside me, she whispered. Do you understand that? Then let them try, he said. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the stream's glow and the distant calls of unseen creatures. Finally, Lysa pulled back, wiping her face with the back of her hand. Tomorrow, she said, the council will summon us. They will demand the trial of Bond. You must pass it, or our vow will be torn apart, and so will we. What kind of trial? He asked. Her eyes darkened. One no outsider has ever survived. She stood, pulling him up by the wrist. Come, we must leave before the brothers return with watchers. I will take you to a place where their eyes cannot follow. They moved quickly through the trees, the air sharp with night's chill. The human noticed how Lysa stayed close, always glancing over her shoulder. She was not just afraid of her brothers. She was afraid of herself, of what she had done. At last, they reached a hidden hollow in the roots of a massive tree. Inside was a small space lit by faint fungi, just enough for two to sit. Lysa motioned for him to crouch. This is where we wait until dawn, she said. The human sat, stretching his sore legs. He studied her in the dim glow. She looked fragile and fierce at once. A storm bottled inside a small body. You didn't want this, did you? He asked. Her lips trembled, but she met his eyes. No, but I wanted your death even less. For a long time they sat in silence, the forest alive with whispers outside. The human knew the morning would bring no peace. But as he looked at Lysa, the strange girl who had bound his life to hers in fear, he felt something stir. Not trust. Not yet. But something close to it, and far away, in the black trees, 3 masked figures moved toward the council's hall. Carrying the news of a forbidden bond that would soon shake the house of the closed eye, the human had stepped into a game he did not understand. And tomorrow, he would learn just how high the stakes truly were. The hidden hollow beneath the great tree was silent, but the human could not sleep. His back pressed against the cold roots, his eyes fixed on the faint glow of the fungi walls. Outside, the forest still whispered. Lysa sat across from him, her knees pulled to her chest, her crystal shard dim against her throat. She seemed smaller now, fragile, though he knew her words had already bound his life to hers. The silence stretched too long. Finally, the human broke it. Out. Your brothers won't. Stop, will they? Her head lifted slowly. No, she whispered. They are shadows that never tire. Once they taste blood in the air, they follow until it spills. Tonight the vow kept them back, but tomorrow they will return. Then we'll face them tomorrow, he said, firm. She shook her head. You do not understand. My brothers are not just soldiers. They're chosen of the house of the closed eye. Their purpose is to erase mistakes. And I, her voice cracked, am their mistake. Before he could ask more, a sound cut the air, soft, deliberate, like claws scratching. Would the human froze? Lisa's eyes widened. They're here, she mouthed. The scratching grew louder. A faint glow bled through the hollow's cracks. Not from the fungi, but from torches moving outside. The human rose, keeping low, pressing his back to the root wall. Shadows flickered, stretched, and bent in unnatural ways. A voice came deep and cold. Little sister, it said, almost gentle. Come out, bring the human. Let us talk. Another voice followed, sharper. Or shall we smoke you out like a nest of insects? Lysa shivered. They never give up, she whispered. Clutching the shard at her throat, the human clenched his fists. Then we don't give up either. But even as he said it, the ground beneath them trembled. Dust fell from the hollow ceiling. A third voice entered the night, heavier, slower, each word like a hammer. You broke the law, Lysa. Oldest brother, his presence was enough to chill the air. You bound yourself to an outsider. You bring shame to us all. Hand him over, and we may yet forgive you. Her jaw tightened. She pressed herself against the wall, shaking her head. They lie, she told the human. Forgiveness does not exist in their mouths. The human looked around the hollow. There was no second exit. Only one narrow crawlway led out, and it was already glowing with torchlight. Then the roots shifted. A long crack split open near the back wall. Lysa gasped. The tree hears me, she whispered. It still remembers my blood. The human didn't argue. He pulled her through the crack, the roots closing behind them like lips sealing a secret. They crawled through damp earth, the sound of their brothers' voices echoing after them. At last, they emerged into the night, far from the torches. They stumbled into a ravine where the stream's glow ran faint beneath jagged rocks. The human caught his breath. Lysa leaned against the stone, pale and trembling. They will not stop, she said. Not tonight, not tomorrow, not ever. Then tell me what they fear, the human said. If I know that, maybe I can turn it against them, her silver. Eyes flicked to him, surprised by his calm. They fear dishonor, she said slowly. They fear weakness seen by others. To them, I am weakness. And you are proof of it. The human's lips curved in a grim smile. Then maybe we show them a different proof. But before Lysa could answer, a shadow loomed above the ravine. A tall figure stood on the ridge, masked gleaming white in the faint light. It's the youngest. Brother. His blade glinted as he leaned forward. Running makes it worse, he said softly, almost with amusement. You should know that, little sister. Always were the slowest. Another figure appeared to his left, the middle brother, his mask cracked across the eye. And then the oldest, massive and still, his presence heavier than stone. Together. They looked down upon the human and the girl, like judges before a trial. Lysa pressed closer to the human, whispering fiercely, Do not show fear. They will smell it. The human stood tall, though his heart beat like thunder. If they want me, they'll have to come down here. The youngest brother laughed. So brave, so foolish. Do you think the bond makes you equal to us? You think words in the dark will shield your flesh? The middle brother raised his blade. Tomorrow the council will call you both. You will face the trial of blood. Until then, we cannot touch you. He leaned forward, voice dripping with venom. But nothing stops us from following. It's from reminding you every breath that death walks behind you. The oldest finally spoke. His voice rolled like thunder under earth. Sleep if you dare. Walk if you dare. But remember this, outsider. You are not her husband. You are her curse, and curses do not live long. The three vanished into the trees as silently as they came. Only the echo of their words remained. Lysa slumped against the rock, her body shaking. They will never stop, she whispered again. The human put a steady hand on her shoulder. Then we won't stop either, he said. His voice was calm, but inside he knew the truth. This was no simple vow. He had stepped into a war of shadows, bound by rules he didn't understand. And tomorrow, the council's trial would decide if he lived, or if the bond became his grave. The ravine lay quiet again. The human could still feel the weight of the brother's words hanging in the air like a blade above his neck. He stared at the dark tree line where they had vanished, every shadow now alive with suspicion. Leaned against the rock, her chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. They won't stop. She whispered for the third time, voice breaking. They never stop until the law itself ties their hands. The human turned to her. Tell me the truth. What exactly did you bind me into tonight? Her eyes flicked to the shard at her throat, still glowing faintly from the vow. Not a choice. A chain, but a chain strong enough to hold them back. She swallowed hard. You are now part of the house of the closed eye, even if only in name, and that means the council will decide if you live as my bonded or die as my mistake. He clenched his jaw. Sounds less like a marriage and more like a trap. Her silver eyes softened, guilt shining through. It is both. The human exhaled slowly, trying to control the storm rising in his chest. Then tomorrow I'll face this council of yours. No, she said sharply, pushing off the rock. You don't understand? No outsider survives the trial. The law is written to kill. I should never have dragged you into this. A sudden crack of branches cut her words short. Both turned sharply. On the ridge above, torches flared. Dozens this time, not just 3. The forest lit up in shifting light. Shadows danced across the ravine walls. The watchers Lysa gasped. My brothers have called them. The human's eyes narrowed. What do they want? Her face twisted with despair. To make the bond permanent. To force the union. Before dawn, so that the council cannot undo it. Once sealed, the vow cannot be broken by any hand but death. The human frowned. You mean marriage made real? She nodded slowly. Yes, but the old law requires more than words. It requires blood, fire, and witness. They want to trap you into it tonight. If you refuse, they'll call it proof you mocked the vow. The punishment will be death by morning. The torches grew closer. The human counted at least a dozen masked figures moving down the ridges, each step slow, deliberate, like hunters closing in. Then what do we do? He asked. Lysis. Voice trembled. We run, or we accept the union. There is no third path. The human's mind spun. He had survived battles before, but never anything like this, a web of laws sharper than steel, a family willing to kill for pride. He looked at Lysa. Her face, though trembling, held a desperate hope that he would choose her path. Why me? He asked suddenly, of all people, why bind me? Her lips parted, then closed again. She shook her head as he looked at me. She said finally, not as a weapon, not as a failure, just as someone crying by a stream. That was enough. The human stood tall. The torches now formed a ring above them. Dozens of masked eyes peered down. One voice rose, the eldest brother's thunderous tone. Step into the circle, outsider. Seal the bond before us, or we take your head where you stand. The others echoed with a chant, old words that shook the stones beneath their feet. Seal the bond. Seal the bond. Seal the bond. Lysa grabbed his hand, her eyes wide with fear. If you do this, she whispered, you carry my curse forever. If you don't, you die tonight. The human's heart hammered. He looked at her trembling fingers, at the glowing shard on her throat, at the watchers who closed in with blades drawn. Then he lifted her hand high, pulling her into the open. I'll seal it, he said, his voice cutting through the chant. The watchers stilled. The brother stepped forward, forming a wide circle with burning torches planted in the ground. The center, a flat stone slab jutted from the earth, carved with the same closed eye symbol he had seen before. Place your hands, the eldest commanded. The stone will taste your blood. If you lie, it will kill you both. The human and Lysa stepped forward together. She placed her palm on the cold stone first, her crystal shard glowing brighter in response. The human followed, pressing his scarred hand beside hers. At once, the carvings lit, lines of fire running across the stone. Speak, the eldest demanded. Lysa's voice shook, but carried strong. By water, by stone, by breath, by blood I claim him as mine. Up the fire spread along her arm. She flinched, but held steady. The human looked into her eyes. He felt the heat bite his skin, crawling up his veins. He had no guide, no rulebook, only instinct. He spoke. By choice, by courage, by will, by blood I claim her as mine. The stone pulsed. Searing pain ripped through both their palms. Blood dripped onto the carvings, sizzling like hot rain. Lysa gasped, but did not let go. The human clenched his teeth, refusing to cry out. Then the light erupted. A ring of flame burst from the stone, rushing outward. The watchers staggered back, their masks glowing with reflected fire. For a moment, the forest itself seemed to burn with the bond. When the fire faded, the human and Lysa stood bound by a thin, glowing thread that ran from wrist to wrist. The stone dimmed, leaving only the faint smell of scorched earth. The eldest brother's voice thundered. "It is sealed. No council may undo it. The outsider is one of us now." The youngest hissed, "Or our curse forever." The watchers bowed their heads and withdrew into the trees. The three brothers lingered, eyes burning with hate behind their bone masks. Finally, the eldest spoke again. "You will face the trial of blood at dawn. Survive, and the bond may be honored. Fail, and your ashes will feed the stream." Then they vanished into the night, leaving silence behind. Lysa collapsed to her knees, tears running freely now. "It's done," she whispered. "We are truly bound. And I have doomed you." The human knelt beside her, lifting her chin. "No," he said firmly. "You gave me a chance. Tomorrow, we'll prove them wrong." But inside he knew the truth. The forced union had saved him for now, but it had also chained his fate to hers. And the trial of blood waited just beyond the dawn. The night was long, but neither the human nor Lysa found sleep. They sat together in the hollow roots of the ancient tree, the faint thread of light still running between their wrists. It pulsed softly, as if the stone itself breathed through their veins. Hush. Every heartbeat reminded the human that his fate had been sealed not by choice, but by fire and blood. The forest outside was too quiet. No insects sang, no wind stirred the high branches. The silence felt unnatural, heavy, as if the world itself held back its breath. Waiting for dawn, Lysa pressed her knees to her chest, her eyes fixed on the glowing bond. "You should hate me," she whispered. "You should curse me for what I've done." The human looked at her steadily. "I don't waste breath on hate," she shivered. "Then you don't understand. We are trapped. The trial of blood comes at first light, and no one has ever left it alive." The human leaned against the roots, his voice calm. "Then maybe it's time someone did." Her eyes widened at his certainty. Did. She had grown up in a world where law was iron, where tradition crushed hope.
"Not yet," said the stranger.
Speaking of breaking it, as if it were nothing more than paper. For the first time since the vow, she allowed herself a spark of belief, but that spark faltered when a faint sound touched the air footsteps, many of them soft and synchronized. Lysa stiffened. "The watchers," she hissed. "They are circling already." The human reached for her wrist. "Then we move now. Before dawn." She hesitated. "But the bond, wherever you go, it goes," he said. "Then lead." They slipped out of the hollow and into the shadowed forest. The torches were gone, but the presence of the watchers pressed close, an invisible cage tightening around them. Lysa guided him along narrow deer paths, through thickets that tore at their clothes, over streams that glowed faintly in the dark. Everywhere they went, the silence followed. Finally, they reached the edge of a cliff. Below lay a chasm split wide, filled with mist that shimmered with strange colors. A broken bridge of bone-white stone stretched across it. Cracked and ancient, Lysa stopped, fear tightening her features. "The rift," she said, "cannot cross. Not without wings or madness." The human studied the bridge, split the stone like veins, but parts of it still held. "It's madness, then," he said. Before she could argue, a voice rose from behind them, smooth, mocking. "Madness suits you, outsider." The youngest brother stepped from the shadows, blade glinting, mask gleaming pale. Behind him came the middle brother, his cracked mask catching the faint glow. And then the eldest, slow, deliberate, his presence like the weight of a mountain. Lysa gasped and pulled the human back. "You cannot touch us," she cried, raising her bound wrist. "The vow protects him until the trial." The eldest tilted his head. "We cannot strike you, true, but accidents happen." His voice rumbled like thunder under stone. "If you fall into the rift, the law cannot save you." The human stepped forward, shielding Lysa. Then maybe you should find out how hard I am to push. The youngest laughed, circling like a wolf. You think bravery will make the bridge stronger? One wrong step, and the rift will take you both. Human's eyes narrowed. Then we won't take a wrong step. With that, he gripped Lisa's hand and stepped onto the broken bridge. The stone groaned under their weight. Mist rose in curls, carrying whispers that clawed at the mind. Faces seemed to shift within it, screaming, laughing, weeping. The human's head swam, but he forced his focus forward. Lisa clung to him, trembling. The rift feeds on fear, she warned. Do not listen to its voices. He heard them anyway, his past failures, his darkest regrets, voices of men long dead, whispering that he had never been enough. But he clenched his teeth and pressed forward. One step, then another. Behind them, the brothers followed. The bridge shuddered under their combined weight. Halfway across, a slab of stone cracked and fell into the mist, vanishing with a scream that wasn't a sound, but a feeling. Lisa gasped, nearly slipping, but the human pulled her back. Don't look down, he said. I wasn't going to, she snapped, though her voice shook another step. The mist rose higher now, brushing their faces with cold fingers. The whispers grew louder, each one digging deeper into the human's mind. Leave her, one hissed. She will betray you, another sang. Die now, and it will hurt less. The human growled and pushed forward, blocking them out. Finally, the far side of the chasm loomed close. He leapt the last gap, dragging Lisa with him. They collapsed onto solid ground, breathing hard. The bond between their wrists pulsed bright, as if it too had survived the crossing. The brothers halted on the bridge's edge, watching. The youngest spat in frustration. Run as far as you like, outsider. At dawn, the council will drag you back. Trial of blood cannot be escaped. The eldest's voice followed, low and final. And when you fall, sister, I will not weep. They turned and melted into the mist, leaving the bridge groaning behind them. The human rose, pulling Lisa to her feet. We made it, she looked at him, her silver eyes shining with awe. No one crosses the rift, she whispered, not without wings or madness. And yet you did. He allowed himself a thin smile. Maybe I'm a little of both. For the first time, she laughed soft, broken but real. Then her face grew serious. The trial still waits. But now I believe you might survive it. They walked deeper into the forest beyond the rift, the bond glowing faintly in the dark. For the first time, Lisa felt the tiniest spark of hope flicker in her chest. But far above, unseen in the shadows, the council watched through the eyes of ravens. And their judgment would not wait long. At dawn, the trial of blood would begin. The dawn came like the edge of a blade, cold, sharp, merciless. A gray light spilled across the alien forest, dissolving the mist of the rift and painting the world in steel colors. Birds with black crystal wings shrieked overhead, their cries echoing like horns calling soldiers to war. The human and Lisa stood at the edge of a wide clearing. Before them stretched the ancient arena of the House of the Closed Eye, a place of stone and shadow, carved long ago into the earth itself. High walls rose around it, etched with symbols of eyes forever shut, and great statues of faceless judges loomed above. Fires burned in pits along the edges, their smoke curling into the pale sky. In the center lay the circle of blood. Lisa's hands shook as she adjusted the shard at her throat, her bound wrist trembling against his. This is it, she whispered. The trial of blood. The council will watch from above. My brothers will guard the edges. And you, she swallowed. You will be thrown to survive or die. The human tightened his grip on her wrist. Then tell me what I'm walking into. Her silver eyes glistened. A hunt. They release beasts bound by old curses, monsters bred from our fears. You must endure them until the final horn. If you fall, they will call it proof the vow was a lie. He gave a grim smile. It's just another battlefield. She almost laughed at his calm, but her voice broke instead.
Not like any you've
Seen? They were made to kill outsiders. To kill you? A horn blasted across the clearing, deep and booming. The ground seemed to quake beneath it. Figures appeared on the high walls, council elders, draped in robes of black and gold, masks shaped like closed eyes covering their faces. The watchers filled the stands, silent as the grave. Then came her brothers, standing in a line before the arena gates. The youngest grinned behind his mask. The middle brother's cracked mask glinted in the firelight. The eldest stood like a mountain, arms folded, judgment radiating from his silence. "The outsider enters," cried a voice from the council. The human stepped forward, pulling Lisa with him until the glowing thread forced her to stop at the edge. "You cannot enter," she whispered desperately.
out.
"The bond protects me. But if you fall, I will feel it too. I will feel you die." He placed a steady hand on her cheek, "Then feel me fight instead." Before she could answer, guards pulled the gates open. The human walked into the arena. The gates slammed shut behind him like the closing of a tomb. The ground inside was dry and cracked, marked by countless battles. The air smelled of ash and old blood. Silence was thick, waiting. Then the horn blew again. Iron doors on the far side screeched open. Out crawled the first beast. It was massive, shaped like a wolf, but with skin of stone and teeth like shards of glass. Its eyes burned red, and each step shook the ground. It sniffed the air, caught the human scent, and roared a sound that rattled the bones of everyone watching. The human stood tall, no weapon in hand, only his fists and his will. "Come then," he muttered. The beast charged, exploded. Under its claws. At the last moment, the human dove aside, rolling across the ground. The beast's jaws snapped shut where he had stood, shattering stone. He scrambled to his feet, searching for weakness. The beast turned, its burning eyes locking on him again. It lunged faster this time. The human grabbed a broken spear, half buried in the dirt, and thrust it upward. The point slammed into the beast's throat. Sparks flew, but the spear cracked under the pressure. The beast staggered, enraged but wounded. Blood thick black and glowing poured from the wound. From the stands, the watchers hissed in surprise. Lisa clutched the bond, whispering under her breath, "Please live, please live." The human pressed his advantage. He leaped onto the beast's back, driving the shattered spear deeper into its throat. The creature thrashed wildly, slamming him against the ground. Pain shot through his ribs, but he held on. With a final push, the spear snapped through bone. The beast collapsed in a heap of stone and ash. The crowd roared not in cheers, but in shock. No outsider had ever slain the first beast. The horn blew again. 2 more doors opened. This time, serpents slid out, long and black, their scales shimmering like oil. They hissed, their bodies coiling with unnatural speed. The human staggered to his feet, blood dripping from a cut on his forehead. He tore the broken spearhead free, now, more jagged blade than weapon, and faced them. The serpents struck in unison. Faster than arrows, he dodged one, slashing its face as it passed, but the second coiled around his leg, dragging him down. Its weight was crushing, its scales cutting like knives. Lisa screamed from the edge, tears streaming down her face. She pressed her hand to the shard, as if she could send him strength. The bond between them glowed brighter. The human roared and drove the broken blade into the serpent's eye. It shrieked, loosening its coils just enough. It rolled free, gasping, and drove the blade again and again into its skull until it collapsed. The other serpent lunged, fangs flashing, but he twisted aside, grabbed a chunk of broken stone, and smashed it into the creature's mouth. Its fangs shattered. He drove the rock down until the serpent stopped moving. Silence fell again. It was dust, swirled. The human dropped to one knee, breathing ragged, blood and ash covering his skin. The horn blew a third time. The ground itself began to crack. From beneath the arena rose the final beast, taller than any wall, with 4 arms ending in scythes, its face a mask of bone with too many eyes. The crowd gasped. Even Lysa's brothers looked uneasy. "The judgment beast," whispered one of the council elders. "No outsider has ever lived to see it." The creature roared, a sound like the tearing of the sky. The human lifted his broken blade, barely standing, yet his eyes burned with fire. "Then let's end it," he growled. From the edge, Lisa pressed her palm to the bond. "I am with you," she whispered, tears falling freely. "Every breath, every strike, till the last." Horn. The trial of blood had truly begun. The judgment beast towered above the arena like a nightmare-given form. Its four Sith arms glistened in the dawn light, and its many eyes itched, burning with pale fire fixed on the human. The crowd above was deathly silent. Even Lysa's brothers, who had mocked all night, stood stiff and grim at the edge. The horn still echoed across the stone walls. The final trial had begun. The human tightened his grip on the broken spearhead. It was little more than jagged steel tied to splintered wood, but he held it as if it were a sword forged for kings. His chest heaved with every breath, his ribs aching from the earlier battle. But his eyes blazed with something unbreakable. From the stands, Lysa pressed her bound wrist to her chest. "Please," she whispered, voice trembling. "Please. Stand. Please fight." The bond between them pulsed brighter, almost as if it carried her heartbeat into him. The beast roared and swung its first scythe. The air split with the force. The human rolled aside, the blade slamming into the earth where he had stood, shattering stone into dust. The crowd gasped. The second scythe came down fast. He ducked, the blade slicing a lock of his hair clean away. He lunged forward, driving his jagged spear into one of the monster's legs. Black ichor hissed out, burning the ground. The beast shrieked, kicking him back with the force of a thunderclap. He crashed into the wall, pain exploding through his back. For a moment, everything blurred. The world tilted. He tasted blood in his mouth, but then he heard her. Lisa's voice, breaking but fierce. "You are not alone," she cried from the edge. "You are mine, and I am yours. Stand, humans, stand for us both." Dada Bond flared, like fire in his veins. The human staggered to his feet, dragging himself upright. The crowd murmured in disbelief. No outsider had ever risen after the beast's first strike. The judgment beast came again, swinging with both scythes this time. Dust and stone erupted as they carved into the ground. The human leapt onto the beast's arm, climbing quickly as the blade swung upward. His fingers bled, gripping rough bone, but he climbed higher until he reached its chest. There, between its many eyes, was a faint Marcan old scar, a weakness. Without hesitation, he drove the spearhead into it with all his strength. The beast shrieked, its scream splitting the sky. Black blood sprayed, burning his arm, but he held on. The creature thrashed wildly, slamming him against stone, scraping him against walls, but still he pushed the jagged blade deeper at last. With a sound like thunder breaking, the spear punched through. The beast staggered, its sides flailing. In chaos, then it collapsed, shaking the entire arena as it crashed into the dirt. The silence afterward was absolute. Smoke and dust curled into the air. The human crawled free from the corpse, bloodied, broken but alive. He stood barely, his chest heaving. He raised his fist not in triumph, but in defiance. The horn blew one final time. The council elders rose to their feet. "The trial is complete," one intoned. "The bond is proven. The vow stands." A roar spread through the watchers' knot. Of hatred this time, but of awe and disbelief. Never before had an outsider survived. Never before had one slain the judgment beast at the edge. Lysa collapsed to her knees, tears streaming freely down her silver cheeks. The glowing thread between them pulsed warmly, no longer a chain of fear, but a lifeline of something deeper. She ran into the arena as the gates opened, falling at his side. "You fool," she sobbed, pressing her hands against his bloodied chest. "You could have died. You almost did." He gave a weak smile, but I didn't. Her lips trembled. She leaned close, her forehead against his. "You fought for me. You bled for me. You are not my curse, human. You are my hope. The council elders descended, their masks cold. By law, the bond is sealed. He is one of us now.
Out there.
Words carried no warmth, only resignation. But the law was iron. They could not deny him. Lysa's brothers stepped forward, masks glinting. The youngest sneered, "This changes nothing." The human lifted his head, eyes burning despite his wounds. "It changes everything. You can no longer touch me without breaking your own law." The eldest brother stood silent for a long time. Finally, he lowered his head. "The bond is real," he admitted, his voice like stone grinding. "And the trial is survived. Hate him if you will, but he is now blood of our house." The younger snarled, but said no more. The brothers turned away, their pride cracked but not broken. Lysa clutched the human tighter, her tears falling on his. "Skin, I bound you in fear," she whispered, "but now I would bind you by choice." He brushed her cheek with a trembling hand. "Then let it be choice, not just law." The bond glowed warmly between them, no longer a chain of desperation, but a thread of devotion. The crowd looked on in stunned silence as the human and the alien girl stood together, scarred but unbroken. The house of the closed eye had expected a death. Instead, they witnessed a beginning. From that day, the whispers spread beyond the forest, beyond the council, beyond the brothers' hatred. The story of the outsider who survived the trial of blood, who turned fear into devotion, grew into legend, and at its heart was not just a bond of law, but the spark of something the house had long forgotten: hope.